true story. This is true story. I was in Los Angeles once to study with a teacher. A teacher came from Jordan. He was in Redondo Beach. And
Astaghfirullah. What beach?
Redondo Beach, but that's just the town of Redondo Beach in Los Angeles. He wasn't on the beach. And we were wearing jubbas like this. This was my first time traveling to Los Angeles. I had on a Moroccan jubba like this. My friend also had on a jubba like this. And I was in LAX, and a man came to me with a heavy French accent. He said, "What is this? I love this. Who designed this? This is what is next. This is what is next. I'm telling you, this is why I love America. Who did this?" And we thought that he was joking. He was like, who is the designer of this? Is this Karl Lagerfeld? Is this? And we were like, this Sunnah. He said, Sunnah? I don't know Sunnah. Who is Sunnah? This really happened. And this really happened. So the idea that a particular style of dress makes one irrelevant, I think is an oversimplification of the beauty of clothing. In my particular walk,
I gotta say that's one of the best answers or explanations I've heard in my life.
No,
what the French animation that you had? Yeah.
It's really happened. But I think that, we have a particular mission to, particularly for people born in America, people that have a very comfortable relationship with some of the, culture in America, that they wouldn't feel that is inconsistent with a deep engagement with Islam. That's what I aspire to show in my dress. That, I don't want someone to think that because you wear a jubba and an imama, that doesn't mean you're irrelevant. Because you wear a jacket and a tie, that doesn't mean you don't love the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That doesn't mean you don't love the Sunnah. That doesn't mean you aren't serious about the turath, about the heritage and tradition and study and devotion, right? And so we want to, provide some balance, but I don't want anyone to ever believe that that's Ustadh Ubaydullah Evans. He's anti-jubba. It's like, no, it's not.
No. There's a hat. The reason why I actually asked the question, Bijan.
Excuse me.
Bijan, please, if you don't mind. The reason why I actually asked the question is I want the brothers to really understand that there is sunnah beyond the dress as well. And that's what you carry. I mean, we try to carry, but sometimes we get away with just doing this, right? And so that's why I was asking. I mean, it's the point that you made was very important. We don't feel bad. I mean, I really don't feel bad at all when people look at me, but we feel worse when people that are Muslims find it to be off or awkward when we're dressed like this. We've been into an events where the Muslim person who is hosting the event will ask to take off our turban, right? So that's different than walking into a flight and them asking you to take it off. So the same way we are taught not to judge people how they dress.
Well, I want to say something about that.
It's opposite, yeah.
You know what's interesting about
that's why I asked the question though. The other aspect. Yeah.
What's interesting about say classic American menswear. There's all kinds of details and.
Tell us about it. Menswear.
How much cuff to show,
You like to show your ankles. That's how Ellen knows.
Where little avoidance of isbal, even in my own way. What I'm saying? But how much, there's all of these details. But the difference between those details and some of the details we emphasize is that when you read those books, they seem to be suggesting, hey, this is what it means to dress at the highest level. And if you want to dress at the highest level, mimic us. On the other hand, I think we forget that if we're going to embody the outward sunnah, it should be done with that same spirit of dignity.
Wow.
That same spirit of this is what it means to be identified as a Muslim. Instead, I think some people present like, hey man, if I gotta do this, you gotta do it too. Almost as if they don't like what they're doing. And I think that's somewhat of a difference. But to your point about the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, where I think the sunnah is most relevant to me is that the Prophet ﷺ was just so good at so many things.
Wow.
You know, and I think that coming from a Christian background, you know, there is no mention of Christ, alayhi salam, as a father. Because, you know, he and Yahya were hasur. They didn't have children. There's no mention of Christ as a person in commerce. There's no mention of Christ as a political leader, right? There's no mention of Christ as a military leader. There's no mention of Christ as a spouse. You know, so much of what you have there are like generalizations from like the Christ-like example. But with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you can actually look at how he excelled in relationships. And this is what for me is perhaps the most captivating thing about the Sunnah, is that this man receiving revelation from atop 7 heavens has all of the regular stress of being a husband, all of the regular stress of being a father, all of the regular stress of having an unmannerable neighbor, all of the regular stress of being a community leader and having people, as Sheikh Abdullah said, Ya Muhammad, a'atini mimma a'taka Allah. Give me from what Allah gave you. And he never got tired of it. He never said, this is too much for me. He never retreated, except, he did i'tikaf, but only to come back to the people renewed. And, I think that example of living righteously and living fully, this is what I think the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ offers America, right? To live righteously and fully.